Yeah,
on
I
the
don't get all the
network.
Laker games. Yeah,
So
I thought because it's YouTube TV, I would get everything. I want my money back.
All right. All right, we going live, man. I'll fix
For
the
sure.
music later.
Behave yourself, Dr. Tiffany. We're live.
We are live. We're in this thing. Man, thank you to everybody who has been super patient. Man, happy Thursday.
yeah,
Got a awesome conversation lined up. And I'm super excited today because we got my sister from another mister in the building. Oh, yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, we're in this thing. So without further ado, I need to introduce who we have in here. Of course, you guys already know that I am the COO, Jared Baisley, Music for Your Mental Health. We're joined by our clinical director, Stevie McBride, our curriculum director, Sean Patrick Lewis, our CFO, Sean McBride, and our CEO, Haskell Jackson. And of course, the woman of the hour, the great, the incredible, the incomparable Dr. Tiffany Saucer in the building. Let's clap it up. Miss Saucer. So happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. It's amazing.
Man, it was a long time coming.
Yeah, we talked about it a few times. Now we're here.
Now we're here.
Now we're here.
So, Tiffany, if you want to just tell the people a little bit about who you are.
Okay.
And what you do.
Well, my day job is I'm director of behavioral health at a federally qualified health center. And that just means that we, the feds are always watching and we service everybody. What is unique and different about the population that I support at our health center is I work at the intersection of developmental disabilities, mental health, and behavioral health. So a typical client of mine is someone who may have like high functioning autism, be on the autism spectrum, and also suffer with like a comorbid chronic medical disorder like diabetes or high blood pressure or something like that, and also have a co-occurring mental health issues. So depression, anxiety, personal disorder, schizophrenia, you name it, I treat it. So that's the day job. I also own a small private practice called the Pink Couch Therapy, which my target audience are professional women who struggle, right, with things like just how to be great and not be so much of a superwoman, but take care of ourselves first. I'm also an adjunct professor of clinical social work at Azusa Pacific University. And friend, sister, daughter, Christian, lover, not a fighter, you know, all of that. So that's me.
Love that. Love that.
Amazing.
All of that.
So, usually when we get started, we like to start off with a check-in. And since we're a little behind, we're just going to let you check in. And so generally the check-ins is just the high of the week. There are any highs for you? Which I think I might be able to think of maybe one or two. If there were any lows, and then what you've been doing for self-care this last.
Well, I call it thorns, roses, and what's budding.
Okay.
So the rose of the week, which is what went well, we'll start on a high note. Tuesday was World Mental Health Awareness Day. So I took the day off, which was nice to kind of have a sort of Monday was mundane, and then Tuesday I was able to take some time to myself. And although I did work still, but I did it from home. So that was sort of a highlight, to just sort of pause and honor my own mental health and model that for my patients and staff and everyone. The thorn is the fact that when you take a day off, you know, the to-do list doesn't stop. So I've been kind of paying for it and sort of cramming things in and really trying to resist the urge to kind of do everything, you know, that I missed. That's kind of a thorn is sort of, but there are strategies to kind of re-regulate and reroute myself with that. And what's budding for me, what's up and coming, there's a few things. I was recently asked to speak at a commencement in December.
Okay.
Which was really, I don't know, there was a little bit of imposter syndrome. I was like, me? Why do you want me? But really, really exciting. So I accepted the offer and have been sort of thinking about what I will offer as folks are being sent out into the professional world. So that's exciting. And that's what's budding. So thanks for listening to my check-in.
Thank you for sharing.
Yo, how far are you on your speech, ma'am?
Nowhere. This just happened this week. So
you haven't even thought about like
I might say like you could do it, put your back into it. You know?
okay, see,
Yeah.
that's what
what?
I knew you thought a little bit about it. I knew you, yeah.
There might
That's
be
strike one. That's strike one, Dr. Tiffany.
I like that.
Man, I'm watching you. I am watching you. Okay.
Just
like
be
that.
like Nike, just do it, you know, something like that. Something real catchy like that.
Yeah. Feel that. Like where you go.
That's memorable for sure.
Yeah. Figure it out.
So, let's get into the topic of the day.
Let's get it.
And there's so much to say about it. But the
Mhm.
topic of the day is setting healthy boundaries. And to even begin the conversation of setting healthy boundaries, we have to first kind of jump into what a healthy boundary even is, right?
Mhm.
So I would love for you to kind of expand on that for our listeners, as to what you perceive to be a healthy boundary, what that looks like.
I think it's in summation, it's a limitation, right? It's a border. And I think when we talk about interpersonal relationships and interaction, I think those borders and limitations are boundaries, right? The perimeters that are set in relationships are really set by your own personal set of values or standards. So I think it's really important to kind of know what those are. In today's society, and I don't want to get too far ahead into the conversation, but in today's society, I feel like the word boundary is really weaponized, right? People talk about it like it's some sort of sword that you're, you know, pulling out in a time of battle, you know, let me set my boundary. And it's not that at all. It's really just you knowing you knowing what you can accept, what you can take, how far that is, and then really being able to, in a proactive, healthy, mature way, communicate that to someone else in relationship, and then not faltering on that. So, you know, standing clear, 10 toes down about what that is, and kind of being unwavering. But in a nice way, in a mature way, not in a weaponizing way. So that would be my definition of boundaries. It's those borders that we set that, again, are based on our value system and our standards.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I know we talk a lot about boundaries, and we actually have a workshop centered around boundaries. And so it's a huge topic when we're working with kids, especially.
Yeah.
And I know, Stevie, did you have anything to add or anything you want?
No, I think actually she kind of established what a boundary is, especially when it comes to developing healthy boundaries. I can't see anything I can add to that definition. I feel like sometimes though boundaries also get mixed in. Well, from what I see on social media, boundaries get mixed in with the red flagging, especially when boundaries are crossed. And I know that's a whole nother topic when you're looking at the red flags, but boundaries is pretty much what she said. You're establishing your border to separate, things that you don't want to be crossed, lines that you don't expect to be crossed. And I feel like you should establish that in a mature, healthy way. And it's all about communication when it comes down to it. Because if you set these things in order and straight, boundaries won't be, set these things, like establish it in the beginning of any type of relationship, they won't be crossed. But it's good to have that reminder throughout the relationship, the friendship, or whatever type of relationship it is.
Yeah. I think there is something to be said though about when we talk about red flags, and I like in that direction, because when we talk about setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, and being able to communicate that and knowing ourselves, there is a piece about attachment style in there, right? Especially with children, if we're going to go in that direction. But for adults too, I think a lot of us sometimes where the red flags come in is you don't understand your own attachment style. You don't understand, first of all, you can have different types of attachment style in different types of relationship, right? So you can be very secure in one type of relationship and sort of insecure in another. And so if there's not that understanding of what's operating, like what attachment style you're operating from, then very, very hard to have standards, very, very hard to be true to your values. And then therefore, your boundaries can get a little blurry, and we can get into some maladaptive presentation. So attachment style is important to know. There are 4 different types. Secure is the one we want, right? Across the board. Then there's preoccupied, there's dismissive, and there's anxious. So I can unpack that a little bit more.
Please do.
All right. So the dismissive type of attachment style, let me pull this up just so I can make sure that I get it correct. Dismissive, or also it could be called avoidant, is the type of person that comes across aloof, right? So this is the one that is, oh, I don't really care. If you don't call me, I'm not calling you. We good, you good, right? Or like Stevie was talking about, this is probably the person that, oh, red flag, I'm out. Just doesn't want to workshop anything, doesn't have time to really like massage relationships. It's just like, red flag, orange flag, whatever. I'm dismissing it. The preoccupied person, or also anxious attachment style, is the one that is always worried about the relationship, right? So this is the, for like,
am I doing too much?
Doing too much, checking phones, and it's like, okay, if you got to check the phone, then we already got a problem, right? So are the person that's really accusatory or waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Somebody's behavior. So, right, even if you're not, if they're person that they're in relationship with, or the friend or the loved one that they're doing life with, even if that person has not given any indicators that anything is going to go wrong or that they're untrustworthy, the anxious attachment style is just waiting for, see, I knew it. I knew you were going to do, just like all men are bad and all men are, that type of thing. So that's the anxious attachment style. And then the disorganized, right? So the mix of the two, the anxious avoidant attachment style, it's kind of contradictory. So they're a little bit of both. I describe this as help me, don't help me. So I want to be loved. I want affection. I want you to look at me right now. I'm going to do a whole lot of attention-seeking behavior. But then when you lean into that and try to show me that love, I'm like, whoa, I didn't tell you that. I didn't tell you to do that. What are you doing? Those are the type of people, in my opinion, in my experience, are the ones that throw around the boundary as a weapon, right? Oh, no, too much, too much. I got to pull my sword out like we're in a fight. I'm just trying to love you. Why are you doing this? So that's a disorganized person. Secure is what we're trying to get to. This is the person who knows themselves, really. That's the best way I can describe that. They're not perfect. They might wean and wane in between all of these attachment styles, but they know that about themselves, or they know what the triggers are for that. So they can tell you, you know what, in my past relationship, this is what came up for me. Or in my childhood, you know, I feel like I wasn't hugged enough or whatever. So I might have some difficulty if you lean into that. Can you help me through it? You know, this is what I need in this moment, right? And that's the type of person that is typically very clear on what their standards are and what their values are. Right. And that's how we get into setting healthy boundaries. So
talked about healthy boundaries, and I think in your unpacking, you may have answered the second question that I was just curious about. Which is, you know, if there are healthy boundaries, there have to be unhealthy boundaries, right?
Sure.
And so what it sounds like to me is that the unhealthy boundary would be kind of using a boundary as a sword.
As a weapon. Another way, though, and this gets into sort of a behind the scenes conversation that Jay and I were having that I'll go ahead and bring to the table, is people pleasing too, right? Because it could teeter into, you know, the nuck if you buck energy, I'm gonna pull out my sword as a boundary and kind of use it as a weapon. Or it could also, you know, go to the other side of the spectrum where you don't have any boundaries, or they're just so easily swayed, right? That it feels like you don't stand for anything. So for example, if you have a hard stop time in your day, Monday through Friday, if you're the type of person that needs to get up early in the morning, right? And so you're like, I'm gonna put my phone on do not disturb at 10 o'clock, you know, that's reasonable. Then it's not okay for a new person to come into a relationship, or a friend or a loved one to come in and violate that. And it's not okay for you to, for the sake of people pleasing, or because you feel insecure, like if I don't budge on this, then this relationship is going to be at jeopardy, for you to go ahead and lower your standard for the sake of pleasing this other person. So I think there's a spectrum of that, right? And unhealthy boundaries. It could look like using it as a weapon. It could also look like not really standing for anything. So then that's not really a boundary, right? And that's kind of unhealthy.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. You're back at 0. You lost that 1. You're about to get a +1 from me. Oh my gosh. All this information, like, you're really killing it. I appreciate it. This is going to be one to watch over and over again, and I will be sending it out as well as watching it again myself. This is great stuff. All right, continue.
I'm happy that I redeemed myself. I was very nervous, you know.
Oh no, you killing it. You doing well. Keep doing it.
It was showtime at the Apollo, and they come with the hook. You know, I just wasn't sure if that was gonna happen, but
nah, you straight.
I think I got another few more minutes, a couple more comments.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're doing great.
All right.
Great.
So,
love the encouragement vibe, guys. Love it.
Yeah,
we're always
Safe
encouraging
space.
here.
that's what it is.
It's a safe space, guys.
So, in setting these healthy boundaries, like, how do you set healthy boundaries in your practice?
So you want to get in my practice. So
In your practice. Yeah,
okay.
well, let's
like,
keep it professional.
Oh, for sure.
feeling like you're getting in my business in public. I just,
Which would be a boundary to set.
True.
I think it starts, again, knowing myself, knowing what my limitations are. You know, there is a lot of pressure as a mental health professional, and really, I am a bleeding heart. I didn't get into this to be a millionaire. I got into it to help people. And so sometimes, if I'm honest, it is difficult when I see a person in need not to jump in. So that looks like having a hard start and stop time professionally. That looks like, you know, having that tough conversation with myself of, you know, it's 6 o'clock, it's time to leave the office, you know, tomorrow will come and you'll have another opportunity to do these things. It also looks like professionally staying within my ethics and my, you know, helping those who I am trained to help. So just because I want to help someone or I have this license to help people, if I don't have any formal training or if I'm not, you know, familiar with dealing with that population, then, you know, I've got to hit somebody with a referral and hope that they, you know, can be connected to someone who can properly serve them. So it really, professionally, it's about not always leading with my heart and my desire to help everyone, but really having that sort of challenging internal dialogue about what is ethical, what is legal, what is sound practice. Teetering into the sort of the professional, personal lane, setting healthy boundaries is not being a therapist to all of my friends and loved ones, right? So it's difficult. It is difficult. This kind of gets us into the past episode, the sort of what we're going to talk about next is the let them theory. But sometimes it's really hard to be a professional and see someone like getting right on the edge of that cliff. And I really want to say, this is a bad decision, but it is my job to do that if I am not their therapist, or quite frankly, if they did not ask me my opinion, you know? And so that's a hard line to walk sometimes with setting boundaries. And again, sometimes it's an internal conversation with myself, like, hey, you're off the clock. This is a friend conversation. And until that person invites you into this space, it is not safe to enter, because then that would be me violating their boundary. And that's not okay. So that's how I do it. Just check myself, really. Sometimes mid conversation, I'm like, okay, yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go rob that bank.
How difficult is that for you though, being a Christian and being a Christian or spirit-led person? If God puts it on our heart to do or say something, and then your practice or your professionalism says don't do that, how do you operate in that? Because I'm sure that's pretty difficult. That's pretty hard.
Yeah, but even scripture says that we are to judge not, right? And so it is, wow, if I'm talking to another believer and we're in a iron sharpens iron conversation, then that's an invitation for me to offer a true, you know, opinion. But if I'm talking to someone who has not yet arrived at a level of encounter with God that I have, or they're working that thing out, they're massaging it for themselves, then really my call is to be with them and to extend grace, and forgiveness and whatever those fruits of the spirit are that person needs. So it's still, even as a Christian, even as a woman of faith, it is still not my job and my responsibility to play judge or jury in anybody's life, you know? And so there has to be that invitation. Even if I'm talking to another believer, there still has to be that invitation. Now, sometimes I will say this, and I say this to my friends, you know, respect my boundary too. You know how I am. You know what I do professionally. You kind of know what my lens is. So if you are engaging in a conversation with me, 9 times out of 10, you know me, you know where this might go. So if you don't want my opinion, then let's not create a space where my opinion might pop up.
Yeah. Mm.
And that
That's
is
good.
that's a massaging, that has to happen in relationships, because I do have standards, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm probably not the person to call right before you decide that you want to rob a bank, because history would tell us that I'm probably going to want to try to talk you out of that. So I'm not the friend to call for that. Let's just be clear about that, right?
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
That's good.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. So what do you see typically in your practice? Hold on one second. Somebody else has questions too. So this is Ellie.
Cutie.
And Ellie and I both want to know, what are some of the barriers that you kind of see that prevent people from creating healthy boundaries?
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, because some of this is really connected to family of origin and sort of what we learned and gleaned in our developmental ages, right? So if you've not seen someone model healthy boundaries, for example, we're Black here on this call, people of color, the inserting yourself into people's business in Black family, I mean, it happens, right? There's this thing, that goes around during the holiday season for single people, right? It's like, okay, it's Thanksgiving, AKA get ready for all your aunties to ask, why you don't have a date for Thanksgiving dinner. Or, you get married and then there are questions about, if you're going to be expanding your family, or people assume that when you get to a certain age, that should look a certain way, right? And some of this stuff has been normalized culturally. And so I think holding space for that and acknowledging that might be, again, at play, right? And then making a decision to kind of shift from that. I think that is just not knowing yourself and not knowing your history, the historical context. I think that's what leaves people vulnerable to have unhealthy boundaries and not having a willingness to do that work, because this is how we've always done it, or this is normal for us. And so I don't need to fix it. It's not broken. And it's like, well, the suggestion might not be that it's broken, but that, again, there's some room or area of opportunity for that to be strengthened, especially if you are operating in relationships and not getting the outcomes that you desire. That's an indicator that there's an opportunity to shift some things. And sometimes folks struggle with that truth of the common denominator is you across all these relationships. So if it's not going the way you want it to go, then perhaps we should look at the common denominator that's at play.
For our audience, can you kind of break down for ones that may not understand when you said they're not doing the work? So what does that look like for someone that may say, well, I don't know what the work is, or what does she mean?
Yeah, that's another really good question. Doing the work can look like getting vulnerable in friendship and acknowledging friendship or safe spaces, right? Like this one, getting knowledge, gleaning information from other people to maybe learn how to do things better. It could look a little bit more intimate, like in a friendship, you can say, you know what, I want to bring this to this friendship, or I want to bring this to this conversation because I recognize that I'm consistently struggling with this thing, whatever it is, right? If it's something that's a little more clinical, like a mental health disorder that you kind of know that you maybe have or may be approaching, then it's a good time to integrate some therapy and talk to a professional who can really give you some tools to deal with that thing. So that is what doing the work are some examples of what doing the work can look like. It could also look like journaling, paying attention to what you're consuming. You know, if you're spending 8 hours on Instagram scrolling, you know, and then wondering why you feel like your life is not great. Well, if you're looking at everybody's highlight reel all day, of course your life is going to look like it's not doing, like you're not doing anything. So it could be setting those types of boundaries with things like what you consume, what you watch on TV, especially in like an influencer society that we live in today. You know, everybody is an expert on something. Everyone's homes look great on YouTube. And I'm like, even sometimes I find myself like, how is she doing that with all of these, you know, everything else? How is that your home looks pristine and you're cooking Thanksgiving quality Michelin style dinners every night? How is this happening? You know, and the truth is that's the highlight reel. That's the part that people want us to see. So doing the work can look like setting some healthy boundaries with things like that. It could also look like, you know, making sure you're drinking enough water. You know, what's your carb intake, sugar intake? Are you working out 30 minutes a day to get
better preach
the movement in life? So there are many different ways to prioritize your mental health. And to get clear about things like values and standards. It's really about creating that space for your body to do the physical work, the mental work, the spiritual work, and all of the above, the social work, all of it. So
awesome. Thank you for answering that. And I got one more question. How powerful is, in your opinion, music as it relates to mental health?
Very powerful. You know, I am often jealous of those who are musically inclined. I really do wish sometimes that I played an instrument or something like that. But music really is a tool because it can be a soundtrack, you know, of what's going on for you. And even in lower times or sadder times, you can hear a song and instead of wallowing, you know, you can let that sort of trigger you and allow you to remember when you were in that low place and how you're not in that low place anymore. So I like to think of my life sometimes as this beautifully sculpted, you know, movie production, right? And there are key touch points and songs that were out at the time. Like, you know, I'm getting a smile on my face right now because I think about, you know, being at UC Riverside with some of these guys and some of the music that was out then. And it's really, really powerful when I'm not in a good mood or when things are heavy, you know, or when I'm adulting big time at 100%, you know, I could turn on Crank That Soldier Boy and transport myself back to a time where life was just a lot more simple, right? Just a lot better. Just have 5 minutes of just cutting up a little bit. You know, sometimes I do close my windows and my door in my office and I just turn up just a little bit, you know, in between sessions. And then I promise to get right back to being professional. Don't kick me off, Haskell. Don't kick me off. I do turn up.
You actually have 2 points right now.
What did it? Was it the Soldier Boy?
I think it was the Soldier Boy comment.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I think
Sean, I heard that. I heard that, Sean.
Yeah, S-Dot was dancing in the background. It kind of all works. So you got
don't act like you weren't there, Sean. You were right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nah, you killing it.
Well, man, time is flying, and
I
really want to at least touch on something amazing that you sent me that really kind of changed how I viewed a lot of my relationships and helped tremendously in setting boundaries and like informing the boundaries that I set. And that was a podcast for everyone that's listening. There's a podcast by a woman named Mel Robbins, and she spoke about this theory called the let them theory.
Mm.
And yeah, I sent it to I sent it to Sean. I sent it to a couple people who I just felt like it would really resonate with. But Dr. Saucer, if you would expound in the time that we have, just let the people know what the let them theory really is.
Yeah. It was one that just, it's not often that I hear something where I feel attacked and seen and called to the carpet in a good way. Just I was listening to this and I thought it was gonna go in one direction, and then I was just sort of like, it's me, she's talking about me. How it aligned, the let them theory is really this liberating mindset about how just because we love a person or want to be in relationship with a person, desire connection from a person, that does not mean that we should allow ourselves to teeter into a space of wanting to control that person or wanting to control the outcomes of the relationship. So an example of it, she talks about how wanting to do that is really operating from a space of controlling. And if you find yourself ruminating, right? And so ruminating is when you're thinking about, you're stuck on a highlight reel or a negative reel, thinking about, outcomes of this relationship or interaction. And it's really synonymous with that anxious attachment style that we talked about earlier, because, it's about really having this desire to connect in a healthy way, but maybe not having the tools to be able to do that. And so the let them theory is this opportunity to kind of shift that mindset. And instead of being so focused on the control and the outcomes of a relationship, simply holding space to let people be exactly who they are and collecting the data about that. And then you can compare that data that you're receiving to your standards and your values, and then you can make a decision about how to proceed forward in that relationship. So an example Mel Robbins gave is this instance where maybe you're on like a golf team or something, or some sort of sports team, like an intramural kind of situation, so not professional. And you meet every week with these folks and you play this game of golf and everything is all good and you think you're connecting, you're building this relationship, and then you find out that they all went off on a weekend vacation and like didn't invite you. And so the ruminating of that can instantly come in, because we're human, is these WH questions. Well, why didn't they invite me? Well, what does that say about our relationship? Well, maybe we're not connected. And it could really be that you already mentioned that you had something going on that weekend, or you already mentioned that you had a lot on your plate socially. And so they just decided to kind of get together and they thought they were doing you a favor by leaving you out of it. It's resisting that urge to assume the worst out of people from this anxious place of attachment or this disorganized place of attachment, and simply letting people present exactly what they're going to present, and understanding that you have the choice to collect that data and decide what you're going to do about it. So it's the let them theory. I think it's really, really liberating. I think it's really, really adulting, like 2.0, because it's not about control. It's not about antagonizing. You don't have to pull out that sword of boundaries and say, okay, well, if you're not inviting me, I'm not, all of that we talked about earlier. It's simply letting people be exactly who they are and understanding that you can love someone very, very deeply and from a true place, but also not strive to control the outcomes of the relationship by trying to manipulate or control their behavior. Just let them. Just let them be exactly who they are and decide from there.
Let Them by
Let Them.
Tiffany Saucer. Dr.
By Mel Robbins.
No. They- the
About to get her
synopsis by
arrested.
Dr.
Copyright
Tiffany Saucer.
infringement.
Yeah.
Give me your license.
Yeah.
Reporting you to the BBS immediately.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Do it. Go. Say it.
What, and you know what was interesting when I was sharing that, I shared it with my mom. There are some caveats that, and I think Haskell kind of mentioned some of them, like, well, what happens when a person is about to do something that's dangerous?
Right.
And she gave the example of like drunk driving, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
So it's
Don't
like,
let them.
yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
Let the
So it's not being a trash friend, or a trash love. You gonna do what you gonna do anyway. It's like, well, no, intervene,
Yeah.
If you see someone literally about to get off a cliff, like definitely,
yeah.
Don't let them.
Don't let them.
Right.
Put that
Help
in
them,
there,
but
please.
don't let them sometimes.
Right. But then that gets into boundaries again too, because then it's about how connected you are to the person, right? Like, because I could definitely, be out socially or something and see someone who's overdoing it, right? Drinking or something. But if I'm not connected to you, now is not a good time for me to put my therapist hat on and go, so, hey, notice that you're, that's the fifth one.
Yeah.
No, like that's not totally appropriate. It could be appropriate for me to say something to, someone else, or observe if they're there with someone and that kind of thing. So it could look a little bit more passive, but yeah, it's not a totally permission to be totally hands off with loved ones. No, it's not that, but it is holding space and respecting people.
What about for minors?
I think that's a little different.
A little different, right?
Don't let them. Don't let them.
Yeah,
opposite.
different dynamic there.
Yeah, that's definitely different. Definitely different. But again, I would also add too, because it's respecting the parent or respecting, right, the caregiver or whatever that dynamic looks like. So, just because I think what might be appropriate to talk about here is just because I have a different style of rearing a child, right? So the way I was raised, I still don't curse in front of my parents, right? But that might not be so, there might be 10-year-olds that could just rattle it off in front of their parents. And if that is what is appropriate there, that's not abuse or neglect. It is just simply a different style and approach to it. I might not agree with it. So I think that in that example, might be a let them kind of thing. Now, if there's a neglect or something like that, then that's different. Don't let that happen.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Good questions.
So many questions.
Haskell, just
Oh,
You need another. I think we got to give you another one, man. You just full of
what about this? What
part
about
two.
yeah, we definitely have to have Dr. Saucer come back for sure.
Sure.
For sure.
My pleasure.
She always drops gems. Always.
Dropped out a PE.
So,
Yes.
but in honoring the boundary of time that we set, even though it looks like we're about to go over just a little bit, I did want to make space for you to shout out any organization, anything, any person that you wanted to shout out.
She said nobody.
Shout out to me.
Right.
Yeah, love it. Love
There
it.
we go.
All this hard
Almighty
work
me.
that I'm doing, yeah. Shout out to all of you for having me, for all of this work that you all are doing every week, holding space. having these charged conversations that we definitely need. I think it's a really beautiful thing to see Black men engaging in this level of vulnerability in a safe space, but that is also public facing. I think it's brave. I think it's innovative and necessary. So shout out to all of you. That's my shout out.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. That's life. That's life right there.
Appreciate you.
Wait,
Certainly.
I'm Black?
Okay,
Absolutely, Sean.
Let's hit him with the WH.
Remember
These
Carlton?
WHs.
Remember Carlton found out he was Black?
No. Mm-mm.
Lord.
Hey, what did
Lord.
Carlton think he was? He thought he was
I
a
don't
different-
know, bro. Carlton was like, wait, I'm Black? I was like, yo, what is going on here, son? What are they
Black.
not teaching you?
I'm OJ.
Just couldn't let that,
Oh no, not OJ.
you just couldn't let that moment just sit, you know.
Sorry.
Nah.
God doesn't let moments sit.
You don't do that.
Things just don't change. They really
I
don't.
I don't believe in that.
That boy don't have any
Nah.
boundaries whatsoever.
Zero.
We just talked about boundaries. We just talked about letting it be.
We got to go a
He
little
turned his
deeper
camera
that
on
one,
after
Dr.
you finished that segment.
I know. Like, yo, it's game time.
She dealt with
Guess
the
what?
boundaries. Cool. I'm
You
turning
just
the
gave me
camera on.
permission. You
Let's
just gave me
get
permission to be me. You gotta let me now. Now you gotta let me. You just
Nah, we got to redefine these boundaries, Joe.
no, you gotta let me. You gotta let me now. It's too late. After that,
We're modeling the let them theory.
I am. Yes, we are.
Here it is.
Thank
It
you.
is.
I'm thankful, Stevie. I see you on the shirt.
Yeah. I'm gonna let that one go. Okay.
Let 'em.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful.
Uh-huh. Yeah, man. I had
So-
to do this for the kids.
It's tight. That's tight. Before we close out, gentlemen, any final thoughts? Pascal, S. Dot, Thankful Steve.
I thought she was dope.
Bro, what the beef? You call me thankful, Steve? What, I'm a toy?
Yo.
I'm a Christmas package. Bro, it's like calling me Tiny Tim. It's a Christmas Carol. Thankful Steve.
Like this.
Bro, you are the character in the movie, bro. Thank you,
Bro.
Steve.
Thankful Steve.
I'm
I ain't got no final words.
Mm.
How about that?
They're thankful.
Thank that.
Yeah.
No final words.
Still a thankful.
I'm going to bed.
All right. It's all right. Let him. Let him.
Okay.
Let him.
All right. Well, before we close out, we always ask our guests to identify at least one song that and you know what? For you, if you had to pick a song that was going to be your theme song.
Okay. Now, why for me does it have to be extra pressure?
It's nothing extra. We just giving you the space to lay it out, you know?
Look, let me tell you, this is extra because we did not rehearse none of this.
Continue with the prompt.
Extra. Extra
One
pressure.
song that
I want you to feel
describes
that.
my whole life. Is that what you were getting ready to ask me?
No theme song. Theme
no.
song, Ted.
Like the whole life, my whole life. You want one song, not
No, not a soundtrack, it's theme song.
Theme song.
Just where you are now, or
stress the doctor.
just a song that has motivated you and helped you recently.
Yeah, let's go with the second part. That feels like less pressure. Just a song that has motivated me and recently. What's been on repeat for me, and it's a nostalgic song, is Wapale's Closer, right?
Come on.
Because it I don't know, like this is a sort of weird season of life where things, there's been a lot of upward climbing, building, laying platforms and foundation. And it sometimes it can feel like I'm just sort of going evenly across, right? Not really having those spikes of accomplishment and things like that, but step by step, day by day, one more day, right? Getting closer to those dreams. And sometimes while it might not look like this big fancy spike, it's not a graduation every day, but it is step by step, day by day, getting closer. So,
Love it.
you know what? That might double as one that I would put on my life soundtrack. It's a good song. Yeah.
Good song.
Yeah. I love that song. That was the song that played on my wedding video. And
Yes.
Sing it? Are you all gonna sing it in harmony?
I was hoping that you could take the lead and we could I'll do the drums.
On the next episode.
Oh, okay. I thought you had the
Okay.
vocal T right there.
Yo, that tea looked fire though.
That tea.
Well, while we're on record, while we're recording, let me just say that I'm super proud of you and all of your accomplishments and how you continue to be an amazing friend, confidant, and just all around awesome person who's never switched up, never changed up, same since day one. And so super happy that you were able to come on this podcast and bless us with your presence. And thank you to everyone who is listening. If you have any questions, how can they reach out? They can't reach out. Sorry, guys. You cannot reach out. How can they find you?
That's 1 point for you, Jay.
Dang.
You can find me on Instagram at the Pink Couch Therapy.
There you have it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Safe Space Podcast. We're out of here. Peace.